Hello everyone, welcome to Hill Street. Today's story is My Snow Globe is Playing Music Again. If you end up enjoying this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. Now, let's get to this nightmare. For context, I am in a polyamorous relationship. My partners will be referred to as husband and wife. When I was about 6 years old, I loved all things ballet. I would regularly tune in to the Nutcracker shows every year. I even had a lullaby playlist of songs used in ballets for when I couldn't sleep. I've always had a history of mental health issues. I have been officially diagnosed with manic bipolar 2, with clinical depression and high-functioning anxiety last year. On my 8th birthday, my mother went out of her way to give me a beautiful silver snow globe that played my favorite song from Swan Lake. Up until this incident occurred, I took meticulous, obsessive care of it, constantly wiping it down to prevent dust, often winding it up and playing it as often as I could so I could hear it when I was having a bad day. I loved that globe. It was my most prized possession for years. When I moved to South California at 20 years old, almost 5 years ago, I brought it with me. As I was unwrapping it to put it somewhere safe and noticeable for my bad days, my husband stopped me from placing it on the mantle above the fireplace, as our cats like to jump up there, and he was afraid they would knock it over and break it. He knew how important it was to me and didn't want me to lose it. I agreed and moved to put it on our center bookshelf where we put all of our special items. And as I was walking across the room, my husband and I watched it fly out of my hands as though someone had smacked it out of my grasp. Bear in mind, I've always been very careful of how I held the snow globe. I always held it with both hands up against my chest. So even if I stumble, the chances of me breaking or even scratching it was low. For several seconds, my husband and I stared, slack-jawed, at the shattered remains of my snow globe on the carpeted floor. My mother accidentally dropped it on the concrete once, and it didn't even crack or chip. As I stared, an overwhelming feeling of sadness and loss came over me, like someone had sucked the joy out of me with a straw. I remember him asking me to stop crying, promising that we will get it fixed as soon as possible. As he cleaned up the bigger shards of glass so he could vacuum the rest up so the cats didn't get any in their pads, our wife and I inspected the damage of the silver statuette of the twin doves. One of the doves had been completely snapped off with the force of the impact. After it broke, things started happening around the house. Doors would be opened and slammed closed. Items moved. Glasses have broken in the cabinets. My wife and I have seen shadows at night when we shut down the house to go to bed. Our CPAP machines randomly shut off while we're sleeping. We have the kind where you have to press the button to shut it off, and it makes an audible click when pressed. and books had been thrown off the shelves in the middle of the night. But nothing prepared us for the drive down the mountain. At the time the snow globe was broken, my partners were both working for the Amazon shipping warehouse in Ontario, California. They got up at 3 a.m. and came home at 8 p.m., which meant I was home alone for most of the day. One afternoon, my husband stayed home from work because he had a bad cold and didn't want to spread it around work and potentially get others sick. Around 5 p.m. our wife called and asked us to come down to pick her up, as our carpool buddy's car had been repoed while they were working. Our car was still draining to replace the oil filter, so we had to ask our friend to give us a ride. As we made our way back up the mountain after picking them up, we realized Cajon Pass was extremely backed up due to rush hour traffic and a 3-car pileup. So we opted to take the back roads. My husband is very tuned in to the supernatural, and as a former process server, he has seen some really horrible things happen to good people who simply couldn't afford to pay both the rent and feed their kids. He had to serve eviction notices on Christmas to these people. He is absolutely adamant that one of the people he evicted dabbled in the occult, as he's been haunted by all kinds of animals that look extremely different from how they're supposed to. Like the coyote that was 4 times larger than normal and had non-reflective eyes. As the 5 of us drove down the mountain, I started to feel really weird. I kept hearing someone whisper in my ear from behind me, and every time I turned my head to look, the voice switched sides and got louder. Our wife sat beside me, and to this day maintains that she could hear nothing. After the voices started, I blacked out. I don't remember the 1.5-hour drive down the mountain to our house, but from what my partners tell me, I was talking the entire time, and I was angry. I kept saying things like, "I don't want to sleep. This is mine. You can't have it." And most creepily, "You can't have them. They're mine too." The more I repeated these things, the angrier I got, until I started screaming them. No matter how hard they tried, I would not answer their questions about who I was talking to. From what my husband has deducted, I was being assaulted mentally by whatever had been attached to my snow globe. Something that clearly wanted me to go to sleep and let it take over. I woke back up at our house, confused as to how I'd gotten there, as in my mind, we'd been on the road seconds ago. Our wife immediately saged the house after that and reinforced our thresholds, demanding whatever it was to leave and asserting that its presence was not welcome in our home. We put the snow globe away in the back of our closet in a tape box, where it's been for almost 5 years now. We know whatever is attached to it is still here. It's not strong enough to manipulate things anymore, and we only see it rarely. For a while, the activity will stop. Things will lighten around the house, and the feeling of being watched will disappear. But every now and again, the music box on my snow globe will start playing again, signifying a return of activity. We heard it again this morning.